So with the Shade Exposed global event this week, it's a great time to rack up some more of those stars, turn them in for lots of loot. Now Shade Exposed requires a bit of a different playstyle to take advantage of its buffs. Do you have the right build? Well, in this video I'm going to show you a build that pairs perfect with Shade Exposed. So with that, let's get into it. So for this build we're going to be using the Umbra gear set, because it pairs really well with the Shade Exposed global event. So first off, let's take a look at the Umbra 4-piece bonus and see how it works. So the first part says, while in cover, gain 10 stacks per second up to 50, so 5 seconds. Each stack will give 1.2% crit damage and 0.4% RPM. So at 50 stacks, that's 60% crit damage increase and 20% RPM increase. And the buff does not apply while we're shooting from cover. And while we're out of cover, we're going to lose 2 stacks per second if we're walking normal. And if we're sprinting, we're going to lose 1 stack per second. Now while we're out of cover, we're going to gain 10 stacks per second up to 50, again 5 seconds. Each stack is going to give us 0.8% armor regen when it's consumed. And the way you consume them is by taking cover. So that's a bit of a mouthful, so let's stand in the firing range and I'll show you how this works. So when we take cover, you can see these 2 green icons underneath my ammo bar. One's filling up and one's going away. The one that's filling up is our buff, the one that's going away is our armor regen. So when I stand up, you can see our weapon buff is starting to go down and our armor regen is starting to stack up again. So if I shoot this target, you can see that our damage numbers are going to slowly decline as we start losing stacks. Now to activate our armor regen, we just have to hide behind cover again. So you can see I regenerate about half of my armor by taking cover. So the gameplay loop is essentially to take cover, let your stacks build up, come out of cover, start shooting, run around, take a little bit of damage, and then hide behind cover again. So that is the playstyle of the Umbra gear set, and it pairs really well with Shade Exposed, because when we're out running around we're going to naturally start gaining exposure, and the only thing that we're going to change is that we're going to do a cover-to-cover maneuver to transfer our exposure to the enemies. This transfer of exposure is going to debuff the enemies while giving us a huge buff in damage. So now let's go over the gear that we're going to be using. We're going to be using the Ninjabike backpack, so we're only going to be using 3 pieces of Umbra, the mask, the chest, and the holster, and we're going to be using 1 piece of Bellstone and 1 piece of Golem gear. Now let's look at the important piece, which is the chest. Down here you can see the talent is going to bump our maximum stacks from 50 to 100, and it's going to increase our stack gain from 10 to 20. So this is going to double our crit damage from 60 to 120 and our RPM from 20 up to 40%. And because our stack gain doubled from 10 to 20, it's still only going to take 5 seconds to reach maximum stacks. So up here for the attributes, you can see I'm running weapon damage, crit chance, and crit damage. And for the mask, same thing. And for the holster, same thing. Now if we go up here to the Ninjabike, this is what's allowing us to only run 3 pieces of Umbra. On the mod, I'm using armor on kill, just because we're going to be running around taking a lot of damage, but you can use crit chance or crit damage if you want. For the gloves, I'm using 1 piece of Bellstone, but because of Ninjabike, we're going to get that second bonus. This is going to give us armor regen and armor on kill. I've rolled armor on mine just for some extra tankiness, but you can run weapon damage here if you want. The attributes, crit chance, crit damage. For the knee pads, we're using 1 piece of Golem gear. Because of Ninjabike backpack, we're going to get the plus 1.5% armor regen. I've got armor for, again, tankiness because we're going to be running around a lot. On the attributes, ideally crit chance, crit damage. Mine just rolled armor regen. For the skills, we're going to be using the striker drone. This is going to be a great distraction because we're going to be running around out in the open a lot. For the mods, I have duration, damage reduction, and health. For the second skill, you can really use whatever you want. I like to use the Reviver Hive just because I play solo and it gives me that second chance if I get dropped. Now for the weapons. The weapons, really you can use whatever you want, but I'm going to be using the Black Friday LMG. So this one's got a little bit of expertise. It's got 12% damage to targets out of cover, 9.5% crit chance, and it has the talent Perfectly Unhinged. This is going to grant plus 22% weapon damage at the cost of minus 25% stability and minus 25% accuracy. For the second weapon, you can use whatever you want. It doesn't really matter. I've got the Thorn here, but I don't use it. Now for the pistol, we're going to be using the Busy Little Bee. And what the Busy Little Bee does is each shot to a different target will give 1 stack up to 10. Each stack will give 20% weapon damage increase. So this is going to be a great weapon to pull out while we're taking cover and just tag a few enemies for some increased damage. So when you shoot the Busy Little Bee, it's going to put this little icon over their head, and it's going to put a little bee icon underneath your ammo bar. So when we switch to our primary weapon, it's going to give us a huge damage bonus for 10 seconds. So without Busy Little Bee stacks, you can see we're hitting for about 480,000 to the head. So realistically in combat, you're probably only going to tag around 1 or 2 enemies. So let's just do 1 and see what that does. So 1 enemy bumped us up to 575,000. So now let's see what 2 shots gives us. It bumps us up to about 675,000. Now if we get crazy and hit a whole bunch of enemies, you can see that this is going to bump us up well over 1 million damage. So now let's look at the stats. You can see I'm sitting at 57.5% crit chance, 101.7% crit damage, and then if we scroll down to defense, I have 276,000 armor on kill and 37,000 armor regen. And then for the specialization, we're going to be using Gunner, mainly for the armor on kill passive, and then make sure you have the proper weapons selected here for extra 15% damage for whatever weapon you decide to use. So now let's see how this works with the Shade Exposed global event. So what I like to do is take cover with my Busy Little Bee and let my Umbra stacks build up. And since nobody's moving, I'm going to try and tag as many enemies with the Busy Little Bee as I can. So now that they're aggroed, you can see that there's this red icon filling up underneath my ammo bar. So when this is full, you can then do a cover-to-cover maneuver, or you can melee the enemies to transfer that exposure to the enemies. This is going to debuff them and buff you. And you can see when you're at full exposure, it's going to keep pulsing them every time you get a kill. So you don't have to do a cover-to-cover maneuver every single time to apply the debuff to the enemies. But anyway, that's how this build works with the Shade Exposed global event. Let me know what you think of the build and if you're going to be playing Shade Exposed to get those stars. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Hostiles guarding location nearby. Reinforcements en route. Charge exposed.
Got one down! Take off.
Heavily armored hostile detected. Reinforcements in place.
I got you.
Incoming hostiles detected.
That minigun should be ours.
Don't give up, Agent Umbra fucking brother! They're flanking from behind that container!
Radar target. You want some?
We need that scorecard.
Agent requesting backup. Charge exposed.
Down and out.
Detecting additional hostile contacts. Charge exposed. Incoming hostiles detected.
Enemy too close.